Hi, I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use a light box to assemble an applique pattern without having to transfer any placement markings to the front of the fabric. This is a light box. I have it turned off right now because without anything on top of it, it really blows out the video recording. So I'm going to show you a little bit before I turn it on, but let's talk about this. So basically the light just shines up from the back of it, and it's a great surface for tracing and assembling applique blocks. So normally my patterns come with all of these dotted lines on them, and you transfer those dotted lines to the fabric, to the front side of the fabric, and it makes it easier to assemble them. So this line is telling you where the eye goes, and this is telling you where the antenna go on, and this is showing you where the shell pieces overlap each other, and it makes it easy to put them together. So normally, for decades, I've been holding these pieces up to a sunny window to trace the pieces, and with the sun shining behind it, the light shines through the pieces very clearly, and I'll show you an example of that once we've got it turned on. But that makes it difficult to quilt at night if I haven't prepped all of the pieces. But it turns out that if you get a light box, not only can you prep those pieces at night if you want to, you can also skip that completely. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. So the light box that I got, my quilt blocks finish at 10 inches square, so the images that go on them are never bigger than 10 inches. So you'll find these light boxes in a lot of different sizes, and I got one where the smallest dimension was just a little bit over 10 inches. That's going to mean that no matter what, which one of my quilt designs I'm doing, I'll be able to fit the full image on this table. So you want to look for that when you're looking at purchasing one, and they're really not very expensive. I was surprised. I thought they cost like $100. They do not. And I'll drop a link to this particular one that I got in the description with this video. So what we do when we are using the light table instead of transferring is you lay your picture, the finished picture. So normally my quilt patterns come with one full-sized image all assembled and facing in the right direction, and then the second piece, which are all of the pieces that go into that, reversed, because when you do fusible adhesive you have to do a mirror image of them, and also exploded and with seam allowances added for all of the overlapping pieces. So what you want for this method is to make sure you print out that full-sized image. So you lay that down on your light table, and then you lay on it a silicone sheet. So I'll also add a link to this, but there's a lot of different companies that make them. They're kind of like the Silpat that you can use when you're cooking, except it's thinner and you can iron right on it. It's crazy. It feels like it's plastic. It feels like when you press the iron on it, you are definitely going to have a melting situation, but you don't. So you can lay all of the parts, so I can assemble all of the pieces of this snail on this silicone mat, and then slide this off and iron on top of it. You don't want to iron on your light box, but you can carefully slide that off, iron right on top of it, and it turns that into one big iron-on patch, essentially. So the other thing that you'll notice, pull this off so you can see it more clearly, is that I numbered all of the pieces in this regular orientation image. This is new. I've only started doing that with this snail pattern, and that is going to tell you in what order you need to lay the pieces down so that everything is overlapping in the right order. So now that I've given you all of that kind of basic lay of the land, I'm going to turn this on. It's probably going to flare the video camera out for just a minute, but we'll let it just recover. And then I'm going to turn the light up to the brightest setting. This has variable settings, just to make it as clear to you as possible. So first I wanted to show you an example of a piece. Normally, here's one of the snail shell pieces. I would flip this over and put it in a window, and when I put it in the window, I'd be able to see those lines, and I could transfer them just with some chalk to the front side of the fabric. if you put it on the light box, so if you decide to still use the old marking method, but you want to use a light box instead of a window, you can see that those dotted lines shine right through here. But like I said, we're going to skip that for this new method, which involves no marks that you need to go back and erase. So the number one piece is this snail body. So I'm going to peel the backing off. And then I'm just going to lay it right on top of where it goes. And it doesn't matter where on the mat this is. You don't have to try and center it or anything like that, because you're just going to peel this off and then stick it down to your applique block, to your background block. All right, number two is this taller antenna piece. Just going to peel that off. And then I'm just going to lay that down right on those lines. And the tip of that is going to overlap the top of the body, and that's okay, because I'm getting ready to put another antenna piece on that will overlap that. So now we have piece number three, and I'm just going to line up the bulby part and then lay that down. All right, now number four is a tiny little eye, and this is a little bit harder to see. I have a fairly dark fabric here, but the main problem is that it's bowing up a little bit from the surface. So I'm going to push that down, and now I can see that eye through there, and I can put that down. All right, now we have piece number five, which is also labeled. I've labeled all of the individual pieces as well. So this is the biggest of the snail shell pieces. Now, this one, unlike the body where I had a very clear outline, this one, my piece is very clear for some of it. So this part of the shell lines up with the outside edge very clearly, but these parts of the shell have a little bit of extra seam allowance that other pieces are going to lay over. So you just need to know when you're laying them down, line it right up along the line that has no other pieces around it. The lines where there are other pieces around it, that is where you need to have a little bit of overlap. And we're going to see how this overlap works on the next piece. So next we have this kind of rim of the snail shell. And I'm going to line it up. I'm going to start with this edge right there. And I'm going to line it up all along there. And now we're going to put the rest of these 7, 8, 9 as the shell pieces get smaller. So I'm going to peel off the backing of this one. And then I'm going to line it up. You can see its outer line. I'm going to hold this down so you can hopefully see it super clearly. You can see the outer line of that shell shining through this large polka dot fabric. So that's what I'm lining this guy up with now. And you can see I'm overhanging the line on the next piece down. And that one goes right there. And then we've got one more itty bitty piece. All right, so all of the pieces are laid down where they go. I'm going to not record this next part because I can't really record me carrying this over to my ironing board without dropping it all. So I'm going to very carefully carry this entire silicone mat over to my ironing board, and then right on the mat, I'm going to fuse that down. Just follow the instructions for whatever brand fusible you have. This mat can withstand any heat that your iron uses. So whatever setting your instructions say, that's what you want to use. So I'm going to fuse that all down, and then I will bring it back here and show you how it peels off and how we then can place that on the block. Okay, here we go. It is all fused down now. It's not going to fall off the sheet. It is not going to fall off the sheet. It's not going to stick to the sheet, but we do have to actually peel it off. So I like to kind of bend the sheet a little bit just to get a good lift. I don't want to accidentally start anything fraying. And I lift it off pretty carefully, kind of work out from a big chunky area. Anytime I'm going to come under here, I just want to be careful that I'm not lifting my layers apart. Fusible adhesive is a pretty good stick, but it's not flawless. You can actually have the pieces come apart if you try hard enough. So I'm going to very carefully, where the seams are, just be extra careful and lift that up. So it comes off all in one piece, which does make it really easy to center it when I'm putting it on my blocks. And I'm going to get that silicone mat out of the way and replace it with the fabric block that I'm going to stick this guy on. So I'm going to make sure I don't have any fuzz on my block. And then I'm going to take my iron-on patch that I just created, essentially, and I'm going to center it in the block. I'm going to line up. I want this snail to look like this is on the ground, so I want that to run parallel with the bottom edge of the block, so he's not just tumbling in space. Make sure that's all flat. Then I'm going to carry that back to the ironing board and sew this in place, or not sew, infuse this in place, just like I would have if it was the first time I was fusing this down. So I'm going to follow the same instructions that I followed to fuse it onto the silicone mat. I'm going to follow those instructions again to get it onto the block. And again, those instructions are different depending on the brand of fusible adhesive you use, so just follow the instructions that are on your package. But look at how easy that was, and there are now no marks to erase, and I do love doing work where there are no placement marks or anything like that that I have to worry about dealing with after the fact. So I think I'm going to start doing all of my quilt blocks this way. And that means that all of my patterns going forward are going to include numbered pieces on that master sheet that you put underneath the silicone mat, and all of the individual pieces will also have corresponding numbers on them to make it really easy for you to assemble. So that's it. I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and I'll see you next time.